of the JIS's thrust to help foster cultural development in the country. Meanwhile, Group Executive in charge of communications at the JNBS, Carmen Tippling, says the society is happy to participate as the venture represents the kind of social marketing the entity pursues. Earlier this week, JNBS presented the JIS with $100,000 to produce the book. Manager of Research and Publications, Celia Lindsay, says the publication is to include 12 stories with illustrations. She says it caters to adults as well as children.
And we're hoping that it will also, the book will help to stimulate reading among our children, among our adults, and certainly help to support the Ministry of Education's literacy campaign.
The stories are written by Nicole Williams, Vinola Bailey-Wasom, and Zara Henry. Acting manager of the radio department, Alva Lindsay Blair, also explains that 6 of the poems are being recorded to produce an audio version of the book. And finally, in today's newscast, in keeping with its continuous sustainability thrust, the Jamaica Information Service now has customized greeting cards for the holiday season available for sale. Manager of Research and Publications, Celia Lindsay, says the Christmas cards, which boast creative designs from the graphic artists of the JIS, are of a high quality and available at very competitive prices. 1 to 50 cards may be purchased for $150 each, 50 to 199 cards for $120 each, 200 to 499 cards for $100 each, and 500 cards upwards may be purchased for $95 each. In promoting the new set of greeting card designs, Chief Executive Officer of the JIS, Donna Marie Rowe, is encouraging all government ministries, agencies, and other JIS clients to support this initiative early and have the cards customized with their own messages. Interested persons may call the Research and Publications Department at 906-2125 or email crs@jis.gov.jm or publications@jis.gov.jm. Those were the stories making the news today. For more information, please visit our website at www.jis.gov.jm. Stay with us. Jamaica Magazine continues. Thanks for staying with us. It is now time to join host Ian Boyne and our guests on today's edition of Issues and Answers, the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Dr. Christopher Tufton, and the General Manager of the Jamaica National Building Society, Earl Jarrett.
Minister, Mr. Jarrett, good to have you on Issues and Answers. I gather the recent conference of Hemispheric Ministers of Agriculture went down very well. It was held at Ritz-Carlton, was it?
Ritz-Carlton, yes.
Tell us about some of the main things, Minister, which came out of the conference.
Sure. Well, we had a good turnout. We had 33 of 34 countries represented. Honduras, as you know, has some political issues. They weren't there. Over 300 delegates. And we emerged with a 16-point agreement looking at the next 2 years and the agro plan for the hemisphere with specific reference to areas that the delegates felt were critical towards advancing sustainable agriculture. So issues related to agro-processing, related to climate change and what needs to be done, the need for respective countries to develop a food security policy that captures those critical themes, the role of ICA, which is the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture. Apart from having an election with a new Director General emerging after Dr. Brathwaite demitted office, having served 2 terms, ICA was brought in as part of the agreement to help to drive their respective country plans as part of the overall hemispheric plan, which is unusual, them being mentioned specifically in the agreement.
Okay. So that means that this capacity building, technical work would be strengthened
They are going to
have ECA's involvement.
Exactly. They are going to have to now play a critical role in terms of setting timetables. They have representation in all the countries. They are going to work with the ministries of agriculture and other stakeholder groups, private sector and others, to develop a framework which will now be developed into a plan for the respective countries, but addressing the critical themes that, from the perspective of the delegates and the experts, are fundamental towards advancing a sustainable agricultural plan.
Now, one of the important things which took place at the conference was the private-public sector dialogue. And Mr. Jarrett, you represented private sector, Jamaican private sector there. Give us a little bit on that and what happened, what came out of that dialogue.
Firstly, Minister Tufton invited me to chair that private sector dialogue, which was historic. It was the very first time that such a dialogue has been attached to the ministerial. And we were quite pleased that you had some 97 persons participating in that dialogue, including persons from at least 23 countries. The Jamaican turnout was pretty good, with some 60 plus persons, 64 actually persons coming to discuss the issues that impact agriculture. If you remember, part of this theme of the conference was also looking at building capacity in rural parishes. So we're talking about bringing investment to agriculture, but at the same time, looking at the ways in which we can improve and build on capacity in the rural parishes. As you know, if the farming sector grows, we could end up with services being delivered within the community. So within that context, the private sector in its final declaration made reference to the fact that it appreciated and is committed to agriculture as an important pillar to economic development, and is committed to investing where it can within the agricultural sector. And they focused on some 3 areas in particular. One was, how do we bring greater levels of financing and investment to the sector?
That's key.
How do we deal with technology and innovation and research in the agricultural sector, and to bring research to that, to bring funding to that. And the third level was how we deal with the marketing of agriculture, both the concept of agriculture itself, as well as taking advantage of the many trade agreements which our governments have negotiated. How do we utilize those agreements to promote agriculture and promote capacity building in rural parishes?
Mr. Jai, you talk about marketing, but one of the key things to be done early is the marketing of the agricultural opportunities to the private sector itself. In other words, the private sector needs to be cognizant of the kinds of opportunities which exist in agriculture. Do you see signs of this consciousness?
Well, it was interesting to note that the private sector in the dialogue made reference to the fact that agriculture should be taught in schools.
The private sector itself was asking for this.
That, because what was recognized was that there's a tendency in our region to get as far away from agriculture as you can. And the first thing we need to do is to get the young minds engaged to think about agriculture. So we wanted it taught within the curricula at all levels. The second issue was that we recognized at the meeting and the conversations around the meeting that there are many opportunities in agriculture that people are just not aware of. And one of the things that we had proposed in our declaration to the ministers was that there be some sort of a database established where people can begin to see what are those opportunities. But in the final ministerial declaration, one of the things that was agreed to was that there was going to be a process of dialogue and interaction with all the stakeholders, including the private sector, to ensure that the opportunities that exist, the needs of the sector, are recognized. And if we're talking, as we said, about agriculture and the related capacity building in rural parishes, we see the tremendous opportunity. And I just wanted to, and the public to understand the importance of building rural parishes. One might have a distribution company in Kingston and might not understand the implications of a farm in Frome. But if that farm in Frome should go, then that shipment that leaves Marcus Garvey Drive to Frome in Westmoreland will no longer happen if we allow for the rural communities to decline, if we allow for agriculture to go away.
So we have to see the importance of rural life, the importance of rural communities to what takes place in the townships and in the urban areas.
Absolutely.
I want to come up, Minister. I want to talk about what we'll be doing locally to strengthen public-private sector partnerships. We're looking at a recently concluded hemispheric meeting of Ministers of Agriculture at the Ritz-Carlton. We have with us the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, the Honourable Christopher Tufton, as well as Mr. Earl Jarrett, General Manager of the Jamaica National Building Society, but also the person who speaks on trade for the private sector organization of Jamaica. We take a break, but we'll be right back.